we're going to see a return to traditional masculinity and traditional roles, because men are seeing that what they've been told through this endless emotional expression, this endless feminized lens that they're meant to look through, it's not working. And women, through elements of the feminist programming, are getting into their 30s and 40s and going, oh fuck, I've been sold a lie. Now that doesn't mean that you don't need to live either of those. You can. I fully respect your choice. But there is...
In a world full of confusion about what it means to be a man or a woman, today's guest made it his mission to help others understand the dance between masculine and feminine energy, how both are needed, both are powerful, and neither can thrive without the other. Please welcome to the show, Jaguar Heart. What are your thoughts on promoting a message that is making men feel an increased level of pressure?
Pressure creates diamonds. You should 100% put yourself into difficult situations if you're a man. Richard Reeves, who is the head of the Institute for Men and Boys, talks about this. And the 2 words that they found in suicide notes from men, that I feel useless and worthless. I've dug myself out of an immensely bad hole where I was pretty much written off, but I turned all of my pain into my power. Men are just as isolated today because everything we do, we're told, is toxic. So when we go through it, I say, okay, how do I channel the traditional masculine traits in a way that is healthy, where I can embrace it?
You mentioned that you've done things that you're not proud of and you regret them.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you regret?
Because I've hurt people, and I wish on some level I'd had
Jaguar Heart, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. It's unreal to be here with you, man.
It's unreal to have you here. Loneliness is just an absence of authenticity because you feel isolated to yourself.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Look, it's an interesting concept, and it's something that I discovered on my own journey internally. Loneliness seems to be this epidemic, but what I found was, why do I actually feel lonely? There are people around us all the time. You know, we're not sitting in an isolated existence. We feel isolated from our true self. So what I discovered is, as I was going through you could say my deeper constructs internally, discovering my true masculinity, my purpose, what I found was there were distortions on the way. And the distortions on the way were more formed in this idea that I'm not something, you know, I'm not safe, I'm not wanted, I'm not loved. So there was this level of operating software that was telling me that I'm lonely, telling me that I'm sad, telling me that I'm not in the place that I should be. And what I started to see with this is more of the ego. And what happened is, as I started to go through this, I found the void. There was a void in me, and we avoid the void within us through things like addiction and trying to fill up through external substances and whatever exogenous thing that we need to try to numb ourselves because we find it difficult to sit with ourselves. But what I found is, the more that I started to dissolve and disseminate and delete the programming of my subconscious mind in the form of the ego, elements of that loneliness would start to go away. Because there's being alone and then there's lonely. One's the physical experience and one's the psychological experience, or you could say emotional as well. But when I started to move into this work and dismantling my own idea of who I was not, that loneliness up and lifted. Then as I stepped into my authenticity, and we were speaking off camera, you know, I would say that from what I see in you, you're a super authentic dude. Authenticity isn't really attributed to people that are really lonely. There kind of seems to be a dichotomy, a split between these two things. And so when I started to see this, that actually as the more authentic I became and the more whole version of myself through the individuation process, that just up and left. And now, because there's no distortion internally, or, you know, there's no neurosis about who I think I should be, or rather who I've been told that I'm not, that's gone away. And then loneliness just up and gone.
So the disconnect between how people perceive you and how you feel you are, so you're showing up in a different way. So your need to show up for a different way than who you actually are, and meaning not being authentic, is actually causing the loneliness, because you're maybe not feeling seen or heard or anything, because the way people are seeing you and perceiving you is actually not who you are.
Correct. And even deeper, the way I'm seeing and perceiving myself is not who I actually am. Rather, it's who I've been told that I am through environment, parents, culture, and conditioning. So, like, instead of seeing it as the person being the indicator of why I'm not seen and heard, what part of myself am I not seeing and hearing? So my thing is, it's never about becoming a good person. It's about becoming a whole person. That's all things that we find are imperfect and perfect that we love and we don't like about ourselves. And as we become whole, so we allow the parts of ourselves to be seen by others and for ourselves. And this is in the form of blind spots and limitations and unconscious aspects that we don't know are even there. We're just guided by them unconsciously. When we start to excavate those and bring the darkness into the light, because the unconscious, you could say, is more of the light, is more of the darkness, and the conscious is the light. You could even say this is feminine, is the dark unconscious, and the light is the masculine. As we bring light to these unconscious aspects of ourselves, we gain insight. Insight is the truth of who we are. This is why generally when you have genuine insight, what will happen is there'll be some sort of somatic kind of release. It doesn't necessarily mean it's emotional, but a tingling, opening, a warmth that rushes up. Sometimes energy can go up the spine and out the top of the head, whatever it is, reflective of that, because there's a part of you that's been released that is now out due to the enlightenment that you brought to the thing that you previously didn't know was there.
When you say that the unconscious is dark, what does that mean?
You just can't see it. It's the shadow, shadow components. We see a lot of that in social media these days where a lot of people are talking about shadow work. This is the unconscious. This is the stuff we repress, we push down, we don't want to own. And so we project that onto others as though they should own it. I mean, we've kind of seen that in the public recently with stuff we've been talking about. People project onto you. And the ego uses projection outward. That's like there's a projector in a movie screen, in a cinema, I apologize. The image projects out. So the things that I don't want to see in myself are projected outwards to make someone else responsible for them. And the ego uses projection and feelings to weaponize that. So this part doesn't get discovered as a part of you. And then we make someone else responsible for that.
Do you reckon when people start projecting, it increases their level of loneliness?
I think so. Well, that's a good question. Yes and no. Yes, because they're further away from their authentic self. No, because those people usually jump into groupthink and they find little gangs that
Tribes.
They can go after people. Yeah, I would say they're more gangs. Tribe, I find, is more cohesive. Gangs are more destructive. Cults, gangs, yeah, we can go down that path. Cults is a good one. Usually a cult, though, what they need is like some central figure to tell them what to do. A leader, yeah. It's a leader that's in the throne position that influences the hive mind. They find an image or an archetype that they want to go after and tear down, and then they send the minions or the flying monkeys after in the form of the mob to tear down the person that opposes or threatens the throne that they have self-proclaimed and put themselves on. And so you can kind of say there's loneliness, yes, would be at the deepest level. And so then people adapt into more of a negative-based approach to the way that they see life by virtue of the attack and groupthink and hive mind. Groupthink's rampant in our society. Outrage culture is as well. And these two kind of go hand in hand. It's kind of like a mind virus, a contagion, if you will, that is really in our society at the moment where there's a deep inability to critically think and say, hey, this person's got a different viewpoint to me. I wonder how I could sit across from someone and have a different viewpoint and go, I really want to understand you better because something that you said really upset me. Now, I don't know what your intention is. I don't know what the full context was, but it's lit something up within me and you're different to me. But what I really want to do is I'd love to understand you so we could potentially even become a united front so I can help myself to understand myself better through you. And this is collaboration and cooperation as opposed to division and hatred, which is often spread when people have different viewpoints in our society. It's you're different from me. I hate you. I'm going to call you in so you're going to be exactly the same as me. And if you don't, then I'm going to launch the mob after you. And that's groupthink.
So perhaps it's not loneliness because by virtue of attacking, you're kind of getting not a tribe, a mob of other people like that. So you don't feel lonely. Perhaps it's not loneliness. Perhaps it's emptiness.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that is a little bit empty and that is then projecting the way that you're reacting or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you look at emptiness is an interesting one because it sits under an addiction, an emotional addiction to deprivation. When I'm deprived, it's usually emotional nourishment as a child. So when I'm deprived, I'm not seen and I'm not heard, then I feel invisible to my parents. Thus, the actual physicality or the somatic state of that, you're going to start to feel empty. Then because we feel empty, what we're going to do is we're going to try to fill up with something. But usually the filling up is some exogenous substance. It could be sex, drugs, alcohol, attention, whatever that is. But how we fill that up is not through something external. It's by becoming fulfilled, by doing the work internally to eradicate the false self. So we move into the true self, which is the whole self, WHOLE. And that's integrity, operating integrity and authenticity. Authenticity, the way that I see it, is the collapsing of the bridge between the head and the heart, which is the throat. So expression comes out in the absence of distortion. So you're not trying to be someone that you're not. You're not trying to be someone for the crowd. You're not trying to roll over and show your belly and submit when things get difficult, when you might say something controversial or something difficult. You go, no, I stand for what I believe in because that's my authentic self. That's wholeness. And that's the antithetical nature of emptiness and the void within us. And I think so many people fall into this emptiness. They try to chase it externally through materialism and consumption. You know, in Ayurveda, the first stage of disease is accumulation. We have a disease of accumulation in our society. We're sicker, we're fatter, we're more fragile, we're weaker than we've ever been, and they call this progress. If progress is to be weak, fat, sick, and unhealthy, you've done well. But we definitely don't have a strong society anymore. And in order to be strong, you have to be fulfilled internally because you know who you are. When you know who you are, you live by values. Your values are going to be reinforced through standards of what you do not tolerate. So most people think that, most people don't know their values for starters. You know, when I'm working with someone, I'll say, what are your values? And they go, and if you hesitate or if you have to think, you don't know. And so values are really important because when something appreciates, it goes up in value. So when you live by your values, you start to appreciate yourself more by virtue of the fact you have boundaries and standards that reinforce the value that you live by. And these standards are what you do not tolerate. So I'll give you an example. When I'm helping someone in a relationship or in my own relationship, peace is my number one value. When I got with my beautiful partner, Joelle, hers was peace too. So in our relationship, our shared value, the number one thing we operate from is peace. Now, how do we reinforce that? It's not about becoming peaceful. It's about not allowing in chaos which could disturb the peace. So we say, no, we don't talk to each other badly. We don't tolerate unnecessary arguments. We have boundaries around each other. We respect each other. This is how we maintain peace between us. And then that creates harmony and cohesion between us. And we come together as a unique bond as a whole, two halves that are whole that come together in order to produce life. That's the biological imperative of nature, is continuity and reproduction. Mm. And when you live by your values and have standards that reinforce them, you'll get so much further ahead in life because then you know yourself. You just go, no, I'm not engaging in that. Thanks, you don't need to change. But I know that I'll go this way if this doesn't work for me. The difference is boundaries versus standards. Boundaries is say, no, I'm keeping you out. I'm going to protect myself. And if you don't change, this is not going to go well for you. You know, I've seen that a lot recently in society. Standards are like, I don't need you to change, but look, that's not really right for me. And I respect you as a human being enough to say, that's okay. I don't need you to change. I don't want you to change. You don't need to fall under my tyranny and form of control to bow to what I say you should do. It's thanks, but no thanks. And good luck to you.
Mm. You said something that you appreciate goes up in value. Appreciating means it's going up in value. That's quite profound. So do you not believe in boundaries, but you believe in standards?
I mean, if we're looking at semantics, they're kind of the same thing, but boundaries are also what people don't realize. They use them these days to say no and keep things out. Standards keep the good in. And so a boundary, if we look like a different one would be a jail where it keeps the bad in and keeps the good out so they can't get out into society because of what they've done. But if you look at, say, like a blood cell, you know, my partner and I we're doing preconception care at the moment to have children soon. And we're at one of the doctors that I go to, and we were just doing a live blood analysis, and the cells on the little glass thing, I don't know what it's called, they got a wall around them and they're just bouncing off each other. And those cells, the walls around the cell are to keep the good in and the bad out. And so if we look at a boundary, they work in harmony with that. The problem is that boundaries have now become almost like electric fences, and that people are just trying to keep everyone out as a form of demand, as opposed to a standard where I can say, hey, you know, respect is my number two boundary, my number two value. What I don't tolerate is insult, attempted emasculation, disrespect in any sort of way, because it's childlike. If you're insulting someone, if you're blowing up at them or projecting or gaslighting onto them, it's childlike psychology, which is rampant in our society. It's everywhere, and it's more and more encouraged, and we need standards to raise our standards. Boundaries just they don't change the behavior. Standards actually change the behavior within you. And then by virtue of physics, you can't help attract in that are of a higher quality because you become a higher quality human being internally.
So when we talk about standards then, how do you raise the standards? Because I would suggest you can't just click your fingers and raise the standards. When I think of standards, the way I feel called to raise my standards is when I see someone leading that I'm inspired by that has raised their standards and I want to follow suit. Do you think there needs to be leaders in place to be able to make people raise standards, or how do you think standards are raised?
So I think what happens, standards being raised are a natural byproduct of the internal cohesion of how you live by your values. So the more you live by your values and you set the standard of what I don't tolerate, that starts to create cohesion in your life. And so it's not about raising the standards to become better. It's about not tolerating things that could potentially pull you down. So it's the opposite way. So as an example, when someone comes to me, I get women saying a lot, and they even message my partner saying, hey, how do I bring in a man that's got the masculine virtues and values that your partner does? And whenever I ask them, I say, okay, so if you want to call in a man, what is it that you start to map out? And the first thing that they do is the qualities they want in the man. And I'm like, that's where you're going wrong, because that's a reactive position of something they don't have. So then I want the man to protect and provide and look after me. That's something they don't have. So they reinforce the very thing that they don't have by wanting it, because wanting is an energy that starts to exist in a future-based construct. So what I say to them is I go, the first question you ask is, what am I no longer available for? And now that's a very different proposition. One is out there. Number two, what am I no longer available for is, okay, well, I'm no longer available for a man that can't commit, that isn't successful, that isn't purpose-driven, that isn't. So then we've got a standard to live by. So when these men show up, or it could be women, whatever, it doesn't matter. When these people show up, I know what I'm looking for, so no thanks. You know, in the time between breaking up with an ex a few years ago and meeting Joelle, I dated a high number of women. I wasn't sleeping with them, but I dated a high number. But it was a quick process of elimination because they didn't fit into the criteria that I set for what I'm looking for, which is my personal preference. So you can raise your standards just by comparing yourself to someone else, or you can actually do the inventory internally. So as an example with relationships, I'm like, shared vision. That's the first thing you need to know. Where are you going? You know, what I find really impressive about you is you fucking know where you're going, man. You're like, this is my vision. This is where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I know what I want to achieve, right? Shared vision. Does our shared vision in this relationship fill up both of us? So for my partner, Joelle, and I'll use our personal example, children and family. Marriage, I'm not going to say when because I'm going to do a surprise elopement with her. It's not much of a surprise now that I've said it on camera. But shared vision, where are we going? Like that needs to be a foundational question. Most people don't know where they're going. The next part is shared values. So what are our values that we share? So mine are piece number one, respect, honesty, loyalty, consistency, family, and health. They're the same as Joelle's. So we've got shared values. Then another one, a really important one, is shared purpose. What is the purpose of this relationship? Why are we in this? For us, it's the restoration of childhood because we both grew up in really abusive environments. So we become the opposing figure that we never had growing up, not to become absent parents, but to become loving partners to one another, to pour the nutrients, the emotional nutrients, the psychological nutrients into one another that the other person wants. So as an example, Joelle loves touch. There's no upper limit to affection and making sure she feels appreciated. So every single day, I tell her how much I appreciate what she does for the home, how blessed I am to have her to have my back. I'll read you a message later that she sent me, but she's such a beautiful human being. I feel lucky to have her as a man, given the environment that I grew up in. For me, I like the home taken care of. You know, I love the nurturing and the softness and the sweetness that she brings. She's got a really soft voice. She's just so feminine, man. And it's like the feminine energy, she doesn't even need to do anything. She just needs to sit next to me and breathe, and I'm good. That's what she needs to do for me. So shared purpose, I didn't have that growing up, and she didn't have a strong, stable man that will take care of her growing up. So we become these for each other. We become these new archetypes to set a new pattern in the form of relating, which hits us in our own biology and our psychology. So we start to form new patterns in the form of relating and interaction. And so we have shared purpose. Like what's the purpose of this relationship? Most people don't even know. And then the fourth piece, which is super important, is shared timing. Right person, wrong time, that's rubbish. It's always the right person, the right time for what you need to learn, for where you are as it is divinely intended for, needed for your own evolution, for what you need to learn. So shared timing is, am I with this person that's in the right place at the right time? Joelle and I, when we got together, we're both like, I'm ready for marriage and to have children. Like, let's get this, but let's build it out on a structure of intent to make sure that the blueprint by which we're building the structure of our future is foundationally set in a really strong way. And most people just don't come into life intentionally. You know, I'm dating these women and I'm going through, I'm going, okay, no, not criteria. Most people are cool. I'll jump on the dating app. Next. Yep, they're hot. Next. This is sensation seeking, which is usually correlated to a high level of neurosis. So people that don't have an intent, they don't know where they're going. They don't know what they want because they don't know who they are.
So that's when they truly know who their true self is, they can have a level of intent. As you said before, people are in their false self, and that's where they're operating with all these kind of stories that they're telling themselves and patterns that they're in that are not serving them. So 100%. Would you say that the answer to be getting out of these patterns that are not serving them is obviously figuring out the things that do not serve you. So then when you're setting this standard, you're going, okay, I can't tolerate X, Y, and Z. And so then you've got that standard in your life. But ultimately, it's being able to understand what your true self actually is. So then you can lead with that passion, excitement, energy, vision. And then when you can show up in that way, people can feel that. They know it to be true. They believe it's your authenticity and it's you being you. And then that will then attract these people into your life. And then you actually can have the sample space of people that you're attracting. You can actually then be able to like have a good quality and like kind of have a good quality level of people in your life that you've been attracting.
100%. And your group will change as you evolve. The first thing that you have to do, you will not get any of the other stuff. You have to be self-responsible. You take responsibility for everything that you're creating, that you're involved in, that you're destroying, that you're breaking, that you're revealing. Because wherever you go in life, do you ever wonder how fucking magical it is that everywhere you go, your problems are with you? It's not someone else's problem. You're the problem, man. You know, not you personally, but the people that are listening. When you go, right, I'll give you an example, actually. My dog last year, he's the most beautiful Australian Shepherd. He's so sweet. He's a former show dog. He's just got the most loving nature. Like, people come up to me and like, I wish my dog was like that. We're on the beach. He got attacked by a German Shepherd that tried to kill him. And my dog's just like yelping. I got bitten and attacked in the exchange. And I was pretty rattled afterwards. And I was in this guy's face that owned the dog. And 10 years ago, that might have been a different outcome for him had I not done the work on myself. As soon as I walked away, I was like, that's my fault. I was on my phone writing a text. My dog was off the lead. I wasn't watching. That was my fault. Wasn't that guy's fault. Wasn't the dog was just following instinct. I said, that was my fault. I wasn't keeping my eye on my dog. I failed to protect my dog. That's my fault. I could have easily blamed him, blamed the other dog, done all of that, but I refused to do that. I take full responsibility for what I created in my life and accept the outcome of that. Now, what happens with that is you start to become free and you start to become powerful at that place. And when you, especially as a man, you go, I said what I said, I did what I did, I apologize if I hurt someone, but then you make the change. There's no better apology than changed behavior. In our society, we have an offense culture that is, oh, my word, your words really hurt me. No, my words revealed something that was already there that you need to look at. You know, short of, and I'm not encouraging, you know, mean things to say to people. I mean, I cop enough mean shit online. Like, my DMs sometimes are horrible with the stuff that I cop from people, but they don't hurt me. They're just words. If I believed them, then I would sit there and say, okay, that hurts. No, you're responsible. But I take responsibility and go, no, stand by my values. I stand by who I am. And if you don't like that, it's got nothing to do with me.
And so if you're not fully sure of your true self, those words would probably hurt you a whole lot more.
Yeah. It's a fragile culture. Like, if words are hurting you that much, come on. Like, we kind of have to grow up as a society. We can't be censoring and modifying and changing every tiny thing. Now, that doesn't mean go and abuse someone. It doesn't mean to do that, but typically when someone's offended, they're operating more from childlike psychology that hasn't done the work to mature into something. I mean, I get told I insult people when I just say, no, like you don't know what you're talking about and your opinion is rubbish because it's uneducated. And this is namely from women that try to tell me how to be a man. And I'm like, I got 40 odd years of learning how to be a man. If I look at the scorecards, you got 0, I got 40 years. That's a pretty big difference in experience of how to be a man. So don't try to tell me how to be a man or be masculine. I'm not going to listen to that. And that usually sends them into a spiral because they're not used to men talking to them like that and say, you got no idea what it takes to be a man in this world. You have none. And you're trying to tell me how to be a man? No, I'm sorry. I don't accept that. And that's okay. And then they usually fly off the handle and I go, see ya, that's it. And I stand by that because I've done the work as a man. Now, modern masculinity, which the 2019 guidelines in the American Psychological Association said traditional masculinity is harmful. Now, all of a sudden, it's outdated. Like what nature produced is suddenly outdated. That masculinity, which is the psychological software that's informed and informs the male biological hardware, is somehow outdated because the American Psychological Association said that. Why I'm such a stand for traditional masculinity is because that saved my life. It made me who I am today. So traits like stoicism, self-reliance, competitiveness, and action-oriented problem solving, these are inherently masculine traits that men enjoy doing. People want to say that it's degendered or fluid or whatever it is. I'm like, I don't really care about what you have to say about that because this is just a modern narrative that people have created. And when you do the work as a man, so embody all of those traits with the one trait I feel is the most masculine is containment. You provide containment to those around you through psychological safety, reliability, discipline, showing up, competitiveness and assertiveness, even dominance. But before you get into that place of competitiveness, assertiveness, and dominance, compete with yourself. Dominate who you were last year or yesterday as a man. I love to compete. I like to win. And I like to use aggression as a form of motivation to go out there and win. This is inherent male biology with masculine psychology combined together. And so when we really examine this, it's this plus men doing the work internally to move into a mature space of masculine psychology. So in the olden days where they said, have all this, but don't do the work on yourself, I can see how that might be an issue for men back then with no one to turn to, no one to talk to. They were isolated. Men are just as isolated today because everything we do we're told is toxic. That's toxic. So when we go through it, I say embody all of the traits of traditional masculinity, but do the work on yourself in private. Become better. Seek out mentors. Seek out leaders. Go to a therapist. Seek out a men's group. Do the work on yourself, plus embracing traditional masculine virtues, adhering to your natural male biological instincts. Biology and instinct will always trump psychology and intellect, always. Nature will always win. If you try to erase nature, it'll erase you. It'll just go, see ya. And that's why most of the people that try to erase this, they're probably not going to procreate and have children because nature's going, no, I don't want to propagate this species. Nature has one imperative, it's to continue. And if you're antithetical to nature, it'll make sure that you don't continue. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And the irony of all the values and traits that you just listed off before, they all kind of come from going through challenge, pain, and hardship and experiencing as a man. And if you were to look at all of those traits that you listed, especially the one that points out for me the most is that stoicism you said, being ability to be stoic, which kind of like that ability to be calm in the chaos only stems from going through more chaos, overcoming it, and getting confidence that you can overcome more chaos. So then when you're faced with chaos, you're not perceiving it as chaos, so you can remain calm. That's all it is. The only reason someone is perceiving you as calm in the chaos is because their version of chaos is different to your version of chaos.
Your resiliency and capacity for chaos increases,
But then if you were to look at all of the traits that are attractive in a man from a woman, it's probably all those traits as well. And so Ryan Holiday's approach with the stoicism approach, he talks about the obstacle is the way. The challenge is the only way. The only way forward is through. And being able to onboard those challenges, it allows you to be able to be more stoic in your approach and through self-reflection. And what I've noticed is the more self-reflective someone is and the more aware someone is, the more they kind of challenge the norm a little bit, the more they don't take no for an answer, the more aware someone is, the more they challenge what people are saying and the beliefs and the norms and society as a whole. And so it's probably a great indicator that someone isn't very self-aware and reflective if they are complying to everything that's being told and taking it as truths when it may not be facts.
100%. And that goes back to the inability to critically think. You know, what is going on? You know, like I always say to people, if something's triggering you, really reflect and go, why? 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 I've heard you say this before. Why? Keep asking yourself why. Kids are a great example. It's like, come on, son, we got to clean our teeth. Why? To have healthy teeth and gums. Why? Well, because you need good dental hygiene. Why? Because then your teeth will fall. Why? It's just kids are like that. It's great. And so where the stoicism aspects, the reflection aspects, and the ability to handle chaos, well, this is capacity. Men need capacity. So when a female or their woman is emotional, they can stay unmoved in the face of her emotional demands or her emotional storms or emotional chaos, whatever you want to call it. But what's happened is what our ancestors recognize as vital male strengths and characteristics that are important to the survival of the tribe. Today's feminized psychology labels these things as emotional avoidance, toxic independence, toxic masculinity, unhealthy aggression, you know, and it becomes this idea that what is instinctual to us is somehow now demonized as unhealthy as we try to sanitize it, you know, break it down into this feminized lens that if you're not endlessly expressing emotions, if you're not endlessly dumping on your partner and overly vulnerable, somehow, you know, you're an unhealthy male. Whereas I would say, I would look at it and you'd go, okay, how do I channel the traditional masculine traits in a way that is healthy where I can embrace it? Competition, go train jiu-jitsu. Aggression, go train jiu-jitsu. There was a study done that boys that did jiu-jitsu have an 85% higher level of self-control. A man is controlled and contained. He doesn't spill out. He's the rock that everyone else breaks against during difficult times. I pride myself on this. My partner and I had an extremely difficult week last week, not because of any difficulty between us, but just pressure was on, it was full on. And I was just handling everything. I take everything on so she doesn't have to handle it, so she can do her gardening, so she can do her volunteer work, so she can write her Substack. To me, biologically, that's part of the provision. I provide the ability to handle the problems so she doesn't have to. And if you get a traditional masculine man, find me one that says providing like that doesn't light your fucking biology up. It does, big time. And when you're providing for people and there's something bigger than you that you have to be responsible for, that you have to sacrifice for, that you have to provide for, that you have to show up for every day, there's nothing fucking better. Nothing better than that for me. You can see I'm expressive. I'm not an overly emotional guy. But this, man, I get up and I'm like, yes, I've got my woman to look after. I've got my home to take care of. I've got my clients I've got to serve. I've got to do all this. And I do it with a smile on my face. I'm like, give me more responsibility. I want more responsibility. I want to take care of children and my wife for the rest of their lives. For as long as I'm alive, to my last breath, I will take care of them. And that's what men do. Instead of this self-focused culture, which is me, my job, my career, my freedom, blah, blah, blah. So people aren't having kids because of that. That's fucking selfish. It is. It's self-focused. And no wonder, like, when these people don't want to have children, nature doesn't want that because the male needs to be sacrificial to protect the women and children and provide for them. That creates a healthy ecosystem. And if you're a man and you don't want to provide, that's okay, don't. But I know every single masculine man that I come across wants to provide and protect, and their biology will light up like nothing else when they're doing it.
Yeah, and I 100% agree, and I'm aligned with that. And I would argue that on the other end, women that are properly leaning into their feminine want to be maternal and want to have kids and want to be a mother. There's a massive wave and counter argument to what you've just stated around what men are here for, in a sense. Mm-hmm. And people aren't talking about it from a woman's standpoint. What they're saying is what this narrative is doing is adding an increased level of pressure to men, and the suicide rates are through the roof with men far more than women.
Mm-hmm.
And the argument, the counter argument, is stating that that what this is doing more harm because it's making men feel more pressure and an increased level of pressure, and they're already struggling mental health wise, which is why the suicide rates are through the roof with men. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on promoting a message that is making men feel an increased level of pressure?
Pressure creates diamonds. You should 100% put yourself into difficult situations if you're a man. I don't believe that statistic. I don't know who said that, but that's rubbish. I would say that's a personal view rather than a statistical view. Richard Reeves, who is the head of the Institute for Men and Boys, talks about this. And the 2 words that they found in suicide notes from men, that I feel useless and worthless. I'm a strong, independent woman that doesn't need a man. We don't need men. That's out there everywhere. And worthless, I have nothing to contribute because I've got nothing to provide for. So that part of them being pressured to be providers and protectors as this reason for suicide, no, it's because we're not protectors and providers anymore, and we're trying to be snuffed out from that position to say, no, I don't want you to be my protector. I don't want you to be provider. Men that have a family to look after, man, you get the best out of them. When they don't have that, when they're lost, when they're confused, when they're told they're not needed every day, when we're told we're toxic every single day, that we can't even say no to a woman now, all of a sudden it's misogyny. If we're not paying someone super, if we're not sharing bank accounts, that's financial abuse. If we're looking at a woman the wrong way, that you're a predator. It's like we're just beaten down at every single part in society. And when you have something to protect and provide, even if that's your own purpose in your career or if it's yourself, you need to start going in to do difficult things. Suffering and struggle makes a man. I don't sit here opposite you because I've been given it all. I've been at rock bottom. I've struggled. I've gone through it, man. I've copped severe amounts of abuse, and it's made me who I am. My mum was a pretty cruel and aggressive woman, but she was my sensei. And as a kid growing up, like a father puts a kid into martial arts, he has to learn through struggle and discipline and difficult things. Why? Because when you go through struggle and do difficult things and put yourself under pressure to protect and provide, which is your biological imperative as a male, this is cross-culture, cross-society, cross-era, cross-generation. It is universal in almost every single culture. Now, there'll be outliers and exceptions to the rule, but the exceptions don't write the rule. And I've looked this up, and pretty much across all demographics, all cultures, the protector and provider is inherent within the male. And so I think what we need to move back to more traditional roles where the men take on the boys. I would say putting too much pressure is that sanitized version of masculinity, which is inherently looked through the feminine lens, that, our boys are struggling and it's so hard and all of that. And that to me is more of a devouring mother archetype. A devouring mother archetype doesn't want the boy to be independent, strong, assertive, and know who he is. So they devour the child's potential. The devouring mother can do this to little girls as well. I know because my mother was a devouring mother, and they don't want the independence or the autonomy of the male, and they use emotional manipulation, they use guilt and shame, they use suppression, they use control. I see that in society now. I see more tenets of a devouring mother in our culture and cross-culturally in other cultures than I see this male dominance that has been prescribed to us. I think males are completely submissive at the moment.
Do you think comfort's one of the biggest drugs?
100%.
Do you think if we were to put ourselves in a position of a comfortable man, like there's a great analogy with a dog laying on a nail. Have you heard of it? It's like there's a dog laying on a nail, and he doesn't get up and get off the nail because it hurts him, but not enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's subtle. But the problem is we're walking past this guy, he's sitting on the front porch of this dog, he's sitting on the front porch of the house every day. We keep walking past him, he's happy, bubbly, excited, but he is sitting on a nail. And day after day, he may not seem like too much is wrong. And then all of a sudden, the dog passes away. It pierces through the skin, it infects him and all the rest of it, and he's in a really, really bad place. It's kind of like this you're not in enough pain to get up off the nail and progress forward. So you stay in the same place because the comfort of not moving is far greater for you in your mind than relieving the small little bit of pain. If you're in this position, which the reality is, I feel like a lot of people are in this position where they're not in a life that's bad, but they're not in a life that's good. What's the answer for these people that are comfort ridden in this in-between phase of not too bad, not too good? What is the answer? Is it self-inflicting pain, or what is it for men that are in this state?
Yeah, look, that's an awesome question and a really good reflection around that, because this is what I always say. Life will come for you. Whether you want to move, whether you don't want to, like the dog staying on there, life came for him by making him move in a certain way where it pierced a part of him and then he died. Life will come for you. Whatever's going on internally, there is a psychological rule to this reality that whatever's going on internally is going to manifest externally. So you can't say stay static. So these people that want to protect their little world in this perfect idea that it's my money, my career, my status, whatever it is, that's going to change. So how quickly that changed for you in the space of a very short period of time. And now I'm here with you talking about it. So my thing might change pretty quickly, but I'm okay with that because life will come for me to make me evolve, to put me into the necessary pressurized state for me to let go of the part of me that's keeping me in the state of comfortability. We're meant to be uncomfortable. We're not meant to be super comfortable and sedentary lifestyle. So this is where when we talk about society saying that traditional masculinity is harmful, traditional masculinity is not harmful. Modern society is harmful. Modern society is the issue that doesn't actually work in line with our biological imperative as men and women. So now it's become inverted, and then now all of a sudden our psychological software as a male has become the problem. That's not true. Society is the problem. This comfort culture is the problem. This outrage culture is the problem. This victimized, weak, fragile culture is the problem. And so when you go through difficult times, like we were saying before, you build capacity and resiliency where there's a beginning and a middle and an end to everything. So it's not necessarily, okay, how do we fix the problem? Life will sort it out for us anyway. It will. And this is where I say we're going to see a return to traditional masculinity and traditional roles because men are seeing that what they've been told through this endless emotional expression, this endless feminized lens that they're meant to look through, it's not working. And women through, elements of the feminist programming are getting into their 30s and 40s and going, oh, fuck, I've been sold a lie. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need to live either of those. You can. I fully respect your choice. But there's a wave coming, and I believe we're going to go back to traditional states, which is why when we talk about this, that we want to care for our partners. I care for my partner. You want to care for your future wife. It fires up the people that aren't comfortable in their position because I think that they know that this is coming back and the lie has been exposed. So the answer to this, if a man comes to me in a real simple behavioral aspect, if he comes to me and says, I'm too comfortable, I need to do the work on myself, usually it has to get pretty bad before they hit that point. But rock bottom's a beautiful place because there's nowhere to go but up. There's nowhere to go but up. And I love that because it's like, okay, cool, I hit the bottom. I'm going to go do something hard. I get every man that I work with to go try jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is the hardest thing that I've ever done. Ed, I got my fucking ass handed to me day in and day out for 9 years. I've had a little bit of time off now because of injury, but I'll be going back. But man, put your kids in jiu-jitsu, put your boys in jiu-jitsu. If you're a man, go because it teaches you emotional constraint and control under pressure in a dangerous situation. And your body won't be able to tell when you're being strangled or choked out, when the walls are starting to close in on you and your vision starts to become myopic and tunnel vision. You tap, snap, or nap. It's one of those three. So
I'm not sure if I agree fully with the fact that the opposing lens, that the modern society is the problem. I don't believe any of it's the problem. I think the word problem is an interesting one in itself. I think what's required is more of an open discussion where it's not a projection. It's more of of an open-minded nature where each party is willing to ask the whys and get to the bottom of what their stance is. Because I think then, as you said, everything does work out. Like everything pans out. Like nature will do it to you, right? And what's interesting when I think about it is, and as we spoke before we press record about how perfect everything really is. Yeah. Like that dog eventually moved and it pierced his skin. Something is going to happen. Yeah. And the the freedom and the weight that gets lifted off your shoulders when you can truly believe that everything is perfect, divine, and right on time is like this really freeing nature. I think when we can project our problems and our things that are kind of maybe our limitations, the things that are holding us back and maybe leaning us into this false version of ourself, not our true self, this is where the projections lie, and these are where all of the kind of problems that are facing in your life lie, because you're projecting them, and it's kind of what's happening when you're projecting them is you're taking zero ownership. You're living in this victim mindset where a victim needs someone to blame, and so by you projecting your problems and masquerading them as an external problem when in reality it's just an internal problem, I think the more we can look within, we'll actually have no problems because we'll actually come up with answers in a sense. I feel like the word problem itself is a really interesting thing because everyone's making their decisions because they feel like that's the right thing. That is their reality, right?
Yeah.
They're not perceiving it as a problem.
Yeah.
Where the other person's perceiving it as a problem. And so perhaps it's maybe more about having an open conversation so that we can ask these whys collectively on opposing views to then come to our own conclusions and then feel it in that way.
And we can wrap that up in one statement, which is self-responsibility. Right? So we kind of come back full circle to what I was saying earlier, take full responsibility.
Yeah.
So just to clarify where I was on a position of problem, it's our society isn't in line with our biology. It's really not.
That's it.
Yeah. And so I'm grateful that you pointed it out so we could expand on that a little bit. Because
that's the thing right there.
It is the thing.
Yep.
Our society is not in line. Now, it's not a problem. It's revelatory in its nature because when life is bringing us things, I always say this to people, when life is bringing you things, and I call them compression events, where there's a series of events that feels like you're being compressed into something, what is actually happening, most people see that as a problem. I'm a victim of circumstance, whatever narrative they run with it. I look at it and I go, cool, what part of me is life asking me to leave behind? That's the self-responsible question. The other one is problem-focused. It's not even solution-focused because solution implies that it needs a problem for a solution to exist, but rather it's a process of revelation where I can start to move into excavation, and then through that revelation and excavation internally, then I can move into integration. And then when I move into the integration, I can say, cool, what is life bringing me? Like coming on here with you, given all of the recent things that went on, people are like, oh, are you nervous? Are you worried? This could be big. This could blow up. I'm like, yeah, also nothing could happen too. And I'm okay with all of it. So I know that what I'm going to be doing is setting myself up for life to deliver me whatever it is that is divinely intended in ways right now I don't fully understand. But I'm okay with it because it's what my soul needs to learn. And I'm here for it all. So this is self-responsibility.
And you just need to zoom out long enough as well.
Yeah.
I feel like when we realize that all of the lowest times in our life are the most life-changing, we can just realize that when we're in some sort of perceived challenge, we can realize that it's actually probably going to end up on the other end of that, a high. We're going to have these lows and then we're going to end up having this high, and then we're probably going to have another low, and then we're probably going to have another high. When we're in the mud, we just need to zoom out long enough and realize that this is actually a really life-changing moment.
Yep.
And there's a very freeing nature that comes with realizing that. And, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from this whole scenario that's been going on right now, and as I said before recording, about where you've got a whole movement of people trying to attack me in a sense. The biggest realization here is that like everything that we're reacting is a mirror.
Yep.
It's like every single thing that we have in our life, whether we like it or we don't like it, is telling us something about ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to self-reflect, look within and go, does this serve me? Does it not? Do I like it? Do I not? Let's try and disregard the things that don't serve us so that we can invite and have more space in our life to invite things that do serve us in. And then it becomes a matter of sharpening the sword. We've identified that these things here serve us, these things don't. We've tried our best to eliminate them. We've got more space to invite more things. More things come in. There's things that serve us that came in and also things that don't. We need to keep those ones and add them to that pile, disregard the other things, and then just keep sharpening the sword. And through the self-reflection, through the ability to take ownership on everything that's happening in our life, that is the thing that will allow us to be able to sharpen that sword and build a life that has more things in it that serve us than that don't.
Yeah, and a beautiful quote that's my favorite one. When people ask me how I help them or what I do for them, I use an analogy by Michelangelo. And when he created the statue of David, he said, "You've created literally the perfect representation and sculpture of man. How did you do it?" And he goes, "I didn't create David. He was already in the marble. I just removed everything that wasn't David." Right? Like, how beautiful is that? Through the I am versus the I'm not, the true self versus the false self. So sharpening the sword at first, it's a fairly rudimentary and heavy process. But as you get like the sculpture of David, you're knocking out huge chunks of marble. But then after a while, you're just washing it, you're refining it, you're sanding it down to create more gentle refinement to your life. And I think the more work that you do on yourself, the more self-responsibility that you take, the more authentic you become. The refinements become more about smoothing things out as opposed to being a bull in a china shop. I've been a bull in a china shop before, 100%. When I was young and immature and I didn't know who I was acting out of who I was told that I was. And so then I'm going to prove the world right by being told that I'm not good enough or that I'm a terrible son or whatever it was that I was told. I'm going to go and become that. So as we start to refine things down more and more by this process of removal, like you said, this serves me, this doesn't serve me. This is the standard that doesn't serve me, by which we uphold our values. And as we appreciate ourselves, we treat ourselves as an investment. When an investment appreciates, it goes up in value. You live by your values, you're investing in yourself, you appreciate yourself, you live by your standards. You treat everything as an investment. Everything's an investment.
Yeah, there's the more of a novice you are at the thing, the more you are able to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And as you increasingly progress towards mastery, the less available new information there is,
Mm-hmm.
so the less you can improve.
Mm-hmm.
Prime example, when you start out in BJJ, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you're a white belt, you learn a new movement and you can improve dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
From the skill set you have now to a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, you can progress so much. You can double your competency, triple your competency, 10x your competency.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get to a brown belt and you need to progress, all of a sudden, every time you show up each day, you might be doing the same amount of output, but the progression is far less because you've sharpened the sword so much. There's only so much more new information that you can learn. So the interesting thing about this, though, is what can happen is a lot of people have their happiness tied to the amount that they're progressing.
Yeah.
So the amount that they enjoy something is tied to the amount that they're progressing. The problem that can lie with that is the more you progress towards mastery, the less progression you can make.
Yeah.
So if your happiness and enjoyment is tied to the amount of progression, fundamentally, the more you progress, the less you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of get to this state where we're kind of falling in love with the process of it,
Mm-hmm.
the improvement of it, and the idea of achieving closer to mastery, not the amount we're actually improving.
Yeah.
Because when you're a bull in a china shop, you can crush heaps of things instantly.
Yeah.
But the reality is it can't always be that way.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to kind of come at ease with the process and what we're doing as opposed to just the amount that we're improving. I do want to ask you another interesting thing. You said on a podcast about your thoughts on affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on them?
They're reactive, right? So
What do you mean by that?
So affirmation, in order for you to affirm something, you have to be opposing a negation. So negation is I'm not, affirmation is I am. So if I'm, say I want to be a millionaire, I'm only writing that because I'm not a millionaire, which reinforces the fact I'm not a millionaire. If I want health, then I'll give you a better example. It's if I'm writing I'm enough 500 times a day, all I'm confirming is that I'm not enough, because if I truly believe that, I don't have to write it. So it's an interesting space where we get into reactive behavior or creative behavior. So you'll see reactive people when I ask them about money. Money is a really important topic, right? So people will write, I want to make $1 million a year, but they're making $3,000 a month. I'm like, that jump's just too big. Unless you do something like win lotto or get lucky with something, chances are you're not going to hit that. So when people come to me and they say, I go, how much do you want to make? What's your number? I think whenever I talk to people about money, you got to know your number. You have to know your number. That might be 20 million in assets. It might be $2 million a year trailing income, you have to know your profile and work towards that so you can set the intention to make it. For me personally, I like liquidity. I like high income. I don't particularly like having debt. So for me, bricks and mortar right now are not the prevailing thing. I like Bitcoin. I like business. I like having lots of money coming through so I'm liquid and can freely move. Having it tied up for me doesn't really work to my risk tolerance, or it doesn't work to my preference. So I'll ask them, what's your number? And, they'll say whatever number and I'll go, cool. Why is that important? Now, what they usually say is why is that important is because of the things they can buy or do with it. And I'll go, okay, cool. See, you don't actually want $1 million. What you want is what it can buy you. Because when it's important, and I did this with a guy, I said, how much do you want to make? He said, 2,000, 3,000 a week. I said, well, is it 2 or 3? And he said, say 2. And I said, why? And he goes, I can get a house, buy a new motorbike. Okay, cool. And I said, you know how much I want to make next year? And he goes, how much? I said, 1.1 million. I said, do you want to know why that's important? And he goes, so you can buy a house outright? I said, no, because it means I help twice as many people. And he goes, oh. And I go, now you get it. Because I'm not doing it for the money, which is why usually affirmations are trying to get away from something that the person has that they don't want. So desire usually operates in 2 forms, which is where affirmations are usually written from, which is I have what I don't want or I want what I don't have. One is material, one is usually physical in the form of disease or some sort of sickness. So when we're trying to get away from it, we have to realize that what we're doing is we're only ever reacting. If we're trying to create something from a reaction, the only thing that we ever create is another reaction. That was a bit of a mouthful there, but we're only just sort of reacting all the time. So life's going to be this aspect of I'm reacting.
Well, yeah, the way I'm trying to pencil what you're saying here is it's actually on a subconscious level from an identity standpoint.
Yes.
A smoker, when they get asked if they smoke, they just say no. But if someone that's trying to quit smoking and they get asked, are you a smoker? You'd be like, yeah, but I'm 30 days free.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if you didn't smoke, you wouldn't say I'm 30 days free. You'd say, no, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
It's the same with someone that's sober and doesn't drink alcohol doesn't define themselves as sober.
Yeah.
They just say they don't drink.
Yeah.
And I think from an identity standpoint is the actual piece, because then what's happening is your identity is forming these stories about your life.
Yep.
And then this is how you're getting caught in these patterns because you just keep reinforcing the wrong identity. And perhaps the affirmations aren't powerful enough to actually reprogram these real stories that are kind of being formed from your identity.
Yep.
So it comes down to this subconscious level, would you say?
It's all subconscious, big time. And there's structure to it. So at the basic level, the way I see it is everything's a vibration. I think most of the cross ideas in physics are everything's a vibration. Vibration then creates a sound creates a tone creates a word creates language creates a code creates a program. Right? This is our subconscious realm. In the programming space, each program is kind of like its own structure. I call them prisons because they're literally a prison of the mind that keep you in it. Now, each prison has a set of thoughts that goes with it. That thought will inform a feeling. Feeling drives behavior. Behavior produces a result. Results create an experience. Experiences repeat and form patterns to liberate you from the very thing that's driving the pattern itself. Now, if we're looking at one, an example would be, a good one is I've done something wrong. This is the fundamental program of it. Now, on top of that, that's going to produce a negative emotional attachment to criticism. If I have a negative emotional attachment to criticism, I'm going to bring people in that criticize me. So then instead of taking the criticism on, then I start to defend it. This is the criticize defend cycle. So then if I have to defend something, then I need an enemy. And then what do I want to do with an enemy? Defeat the enemy. And the ego designs all of this. So then I don't discover that the only thing I need to defeat is the part of me that wants to defeat something else. When the only thing to defeat is the false idea that any of this is true for you. It's real in the way that it manifests, but the game is to overcome this. So when you're beyond this, you don't need affirmations because life is just going, here's the opportunity. It's not about creating just financial abundance. It's about playing the game in this orchestra of divinity that's out there that once you see it, and we spoke about this off camera, which is, phenomenal, man, to have this chat with someone because not many people get it. That life is at all times working for me to liberate me from the constraints of my own subconscious mind. So then I can become more whole and then enjoy the life and actually engage with all of this. That's why coming on here, people are like, man, you're going to cop it. And I'm like, awesome. Let's see what life brings for me. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is good. Let's go. Let's see what life brings for me. This is what I love about it, because whatever it brings me, if it affects me, it's an opportunity for me to leave something behind, not gain something from life. A really good example was I was working with a client of mine, and she was in the program of I'm Not Safe. I'm Not Safe has a standard emotional negative addiction to distrust. So she doesn't trust life. So I said, all right, so what's your relationship with life? And she's like, I'm telling life that it needs to prove to me that I can't trust it. That I can trust it. And I said, well, all you're doing in the vibrational structure that you're in internally is saying that you don't trust life. So all life is going to give you is more elements that proving to you that you can't trust it, so you can trust that you can't trust, thereby reinforcing the fact you can trust, which is inherent in the fabric of our reality. So it's wild when you see this stuff, man, and that's where you play the game.
I'm sensing when I'm trying to strip back where it all comes from, and it comes back down to this false self and true self thing.
Yeah.
Because when you can show up as your true self, what stems from that is everything else.
Mm-hmm.
When you can truly believe in yourself, like believe in yourself more than everyone else, it gives off this aura that people can feel. And it flows into every area of your life. When you truly believe in yourself, what you're doing, where you're trying to go, the mission you're on, the message you're giving across, you don't need affirmations.
Exactly.
You don't need no motivational music. You don't need no inspiration from someone else. You're on your own path. You're not even looking at the other areas because you're so focused on where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in that state of your true self, where you're confident with what you're trying to do, you're empowered by the message and what you're truly trying to do. When you're in that state, everything else starts to flow in your life. And I just don't think it comes, I think when you're in that state, you actually don't have time for all of these distractions that typically kind of consume people's days, weeks, years, and lives, really. Being able to be in this state of like, I know who I am. I'm confident in it. Come at me if you want.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, be unfazed in a sense. It's like, why would I be fazed by saying something that truly means to me and truly aligns with my values and what I'm trying to do with my life?
Yeah.
How can I be fazed?
Exactly. And, I get messages every day from men thanking me. They're like, man, thank you for standing up for us. Thank you for being the voice of traditional masculinity in Australia for us, because we're too scared to talk about it. And this is a really sad symptom of this. And I say, I'm being carried by a wave that's bigger than me. I've tried to get out of the masculinity space a few times. And it's kind of like, what's the movie? The Godfather. It's like every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. And some guy will message me, and right when I'm about to go, I'm going to go down the teaching path and teach the stuff around the subconscious prisons that I know, or teach someone how to free themselves instead of me doing it for them. I'll get a message from a man saying, listening to your stuff saved my life. It got me out of an abusive relationship. I didn't realize what I was in. You helped me overcome whatever number of issues without ever even working with the guy, just by being a representative for someone to say, hey man, it's okay if you want to stand up for something. Now, I'm in a bit more of a controversial field, which is wild to think that traditional masculinity is a controversial field by any stretch of the imagination. But in the realm of the adding to that with the subconscious programming and the patterns and the nature of language, all of that comes with it that I do. You even said to me when we were chatting, you're like, man, you got some really deep stuff. So we want to talk about this in the podcast, which I'm glad that we're doing. But as I started to see that life was going, okay, you want to step out, buddy? We want you to focus on helping men. This is my journey. This is my path. And I was literally saying, I'm getting out of this to my partner just a few months ago. And then I doubled down and said, you know what? No, I'm only going to do one thing now. That's help men in my masculinity group to run through the individuation process, dissolve their subconscious programming, help them understand the patterns which are defining them and breaking them. What happened is all of this stuff happened. I'm now sitting here with you. I'm only 3 or 4 weeks into the masculinity group that I'm running. That's the only thing I'm really offering at the moment. And it's just life's going, here you go. This is what I got for you because you listened.
Yeah, and I think when there's a message going against traditional masculinity, I respect it. And I think the problem with the 1950s and back in the day is there actually was legal constraints for women to be doing certain things, right? And that's removing freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. But if we remove all of that and we remove all of the constraints that they legitimately had back in the day, women did, right?
Yeah.
And there was freedom of choice. and we encouraged men to be strong men, and we built up men in what they truly want to do and what they truly not should. I don't like saying the word should, but I think when we can encourage this and there's no restraints, a byproduct of that would probably be that everything falls into place how it was when there is constraints.
Yeah.
But there's no need of this feeling like they're trapped and they're caged. It's kind of this ability to, I don't think the problem with the olden days, call it, is their intent.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is women maybe feeling trapped.
Yeah.
And I think being able to have this freedom of choice to be able to do whatever they want, but then being able to encourage and instill really strong values in both men and women that align with our biology and what deep down we truly want to do before we get weathered, I think we can ultimately result in a happier, more fulfilling, more peaceful and more joyful society. And that would be my thoughts.
I fully agree with you. It's not about being regressive to go back to take rights away from women. No, like give someone the freedom and watch what they do with it. That's how you learn how to trust someone. Watch how they operate when you give them all the choice that they want. I think modern relationships with traditional values. I don't advocate for women not having rights at all. Women should. Why we even didn't have equal rights is kind of mind-boggling to me in the first place. Now, there's sort of literature around that, which I don't want to go into. It's more from a personal stance. But women should have access to everything that men do. There should be no differences in that. And I do believe that when you're in a traditional relationship, biologically, it really helps. And I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs that my beautiful partner sent me just on the way up here, because she was saying, I hope this is okay. I think this is going to be great for you. I've got you back 100%. And this is her quote. And I'm going to post this on my stories in Instagram so people don't think I'm just paraphrasing this. She said, "You've been the catalyst for my healing in so many ways. I no longer wake up anxious with a racing heart. I no longer ruminate all day long. I sleep soundly through the night and my menstrual cycle is coming back into balance, thanks to the safety, consistency, stability, and security you provide. It's the first relationship I've been in where I feel my true, authentic self is seen and welcomed and desired. I wake up feeling so full of peace, love, fulfillment, and happiness, and that only grows by the day. Thank you for being an upstanding gentleman, day in and day out, for honoring me, taking care of me, encouraging my growth and evolution, loving me with all your heart, and genuinely wanting the best for me. You show up like this no matter what life presents us with. This level of consistency is so reassuring to a woman and is a true insight into your impeccable character and inner strength. Thank you for trusting me with your heart. It is truly the greatest honor to be the woman by your side. I will always support you and back you no matter what. I believe in you and trust you in my whole being." If that's not a representation of what traditional masculinity can bring out of a woman, and when she falls into her traditional femininity as an example of trusting the masculine, I don't know what is.
How does that message make you feel?
Amazing. It fires me up. I feel lucky to have it. It moves me internally. It makes me want to go and conquer the world. A woman that believes in you, she is part of the reason that I do this still, because I want to provide for her and protect and be an example for our children that are coming through. Whether it's a daughter, whether it's a son, or whether it's both, I'm going to instill these virtues in them. And especially if it's a son, I want him to know that his father stood up for men that are killing themselves, for men that are being belittled and attacked and, disrespected. And in the time of our greatest war on masculinity, my dad was the one that stood up against it. And that's what I want to be a stand for. And she helps me do that. There's no, man, I can't even really put it into words how much the right woman can propel the man into action and how much healing can be had with the right man for the woman. It goes both ways. This is of equal exchange of value. Just the metrics by which the value is exchanged is different. I give the house, she provides the home. The feminine energy that she brings into the home makes me relax. The masculine energy that I bring into the home makes her feel safe. She literally went from a 75-day cycle. When we moved in together in December, she was 75-day cycle. Literally the first month, she dropped down to 42, 43. Each month since then, she's down at 35 days now, which is in the healthy range. That'll probably keep dropping down to 28 days. When she's at 28 days, we'll start to conceive. That's all that I did was say, you can quit your job and I'll replace your salary and take care of you. I look after her every day. I make sure she's appreciated. We look after each other and she does the very same for me. I don't really need to exemplify how much she does because that message speaks for it itself. But even this morning, I was lying in bed with her, and this is where men need discipline. It was cold. She was cuddling me. I had our dog in the bed as well. And I'm like, I got to get up, baby. And she's like, I don't want you to get up. And I said, no, I got to get up so I can go to the gym, do my ice baths, because I want to show Chris the respect by showing up sharp. I want to be on point. Now, if I'm listening to my emotions, I would have stayed in bed. But by being disciplined and driven towards something bigger, which she inspires me to do so, I'm already super inspired and driven. I was already super successful and financially sorted before we got together. She has only helped me encourage that. And my income in the last, since she moved in with me 6 months ago, has gone up by 70%, 70. I'm a pretty high income earner. That's a significant amount of money. Her income has gone up by 500% as a result. This is in the nature of reciprocation. And like you said, I think it was in one of the commentaries you were providing, worrying about superannuation is not really a thing that we're involved in. She said to me in the first couple of weeks we got together, at any point she'll sign a prenup, at any point. And I said, if you're the mother of my children, I don't want that. I don't need that. When we get married and we have children, we're not married yet. When we get married and children, I don't care if the assets are divided by half, because we don't live this extravagant life where I need $100 million and multiple arrangements of debt and 85 cars. Relative to what I make, we live pretty simply. Like, I really only spend maybe 15 to 20% of the income that I make, because I don't need that overly materialistic lifestyle. I like nice things. I like expensive watches. I like expensive cars. I like to travel first class. But that's not my whole life. What's more important is creating a healthy ecosystem within the home where she's healthy, as she just gave that beautiful testimony to how much her health has been, how much it's improved. And what I want women to understand that when they get with a solid masculine man that has their best intentions at heart, that will help them, that will protect and provide, you get that. Because I know there's a lot of women out there who are struggling, that are burnt out, that would love it if a man would take care of them. I did a poll last night on my Instagram stories, and yeah, it'll probably a bit more of an echo chamber because of my following and traditional viewpoint. But there's like 2,500 people that said, yes, it was a 96th, 97th percentile. Yes, I want a man to take care of me. Yes, I would do that if I knew the man would take care of me. So when we look at this from this perspective, let's say if we have children, we get divorced, she should get enough money to be satisfied. And I would happily give that to her. Whatever that is, whether it's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month. If she's looking after my kids, she deserves half. If she's looking after her kids, she deserves half. And more importantly, if she's looking after our kids, what's mine is hers. That's the way I see it. And when you remove this, I'm going to get mine, I just want you to pay my super, this kind of, it's not gold diggerish, but it's so like myopic. There's so much more to provide in a relationship than just money. Even when Joelle was listening to all of this, she was just like, this just sounds like a money grab. It just sounds like this is the only thing they care about. And yes, we should look after it, but become a good, mature, solid, masculine man and just go, I'm here to sacrifice. That's what you do as a man. And if she's coming to the table and bringing equal value of exchange, you're going to set yourself up pretty well on top of the aspects I said earlier around shared vision, values, timing, and purpose. You get that right, you're in the right place. You have a best friend quality within the relationship, respect and love, solid communication, and you're working together to pour the nutrients into one another to genuinely do that. Money's not important there. It's really not. And to sort of throw this back at all the backlash that's been coming at you and myself as well, relative to the financial aspect, I don't care about that. I'm not signing a prenup. I'm the one that takes the risk in that scenario. Financially, if we're looking at it from the myopic viewpoint of only finances, I take the risk. I've got the assets, I've got the money, I've got the business. In every relationship, there's risk. We risk our heart, we risk our emotions, we risk our future, we risk our children's future. The people that just want to be set up completely want all the upside and none of the risk. That's not life. It's just not life. It's not reality. It's fantasy. And what we need to look at is, from a really serious perspective, is every relationship comes with risk. But the more you're tolerant to risk and you say, you know what, I'm going all in. And if Joelle decides to leave me with my kids, okay, I'll figure it out. I chose that. That was written for me on some level. I take responsibility for it. How about I look at where did I fail? Where did I fail in this? And then I go to become better for it. but you can mitigate the percentage of risk by heading into a relationship with the right intention and the right standards. We had a conversation about the prenuptial agreement. We came to like a figure. I said, look, if I'm making X amount, I'll give you this percentage. Would you be okay with that? She's like, yep. I'm like, cool. There's our prenup, just a verbal contract and an agreement, because she's such a beautiful human being and I'm solid in the way that I treat her. I don't want her to suffer. I don't want to rip it out because money's not that important to me. You can't take it with you. Yes, I make a lot of money, but you can't take it with you. Like I've made it, I've lost it, I've made it again. Who gives a fuck, man? You know what I mean? Like there's more important things than money. Be focused on what you bring to the table. And I notice in that there's a big narrative around, okay, what am I going to get? How about you focus on what you bring? What do you bring as a woman to the table? And as a man, what do you offer for the woman to bring that? Is it asymmetrical or is it a symmetrical division of, okay, Joelle to me brings everything that I want in a relationship. She's beautiful, she's kind, she's compassionate, she's nurturing, she's soft. She's such a sweetheart. She can do whatever she wants. And you know what she decides to do? Volunteer for the Girl Guides. Help women that are stuck in the Wesley mission that are young, that she can help. That's a beautiful human being. Not I'm going to get mine and I'm going to go to the day spa and do all this other stuff. It's just self-focused. She's like, how do I do this? She writes a Substack. She's involved in mothering and pregnancy. She's doing everything that she wants. She will never have to work in her life. And the thing that she goes to do is to help Girl Guides. To me, that lights me up more than that message because it shows how beautiful she is, how giving she is, how warm she is. I wish more women would follow her lead. She's an example of what a beautiful, kind, nurturing, feminine woman is. And that's why I chose her. And that's why she chose me. That's what we did, because she knows I will do whatever it takes to look after her. And I will. And I think this is where we need to come from, modern relationships with traditional aspects to it, because you both thrive. I'm thriving because of her, man, because I get to take care of her and I've got all this responsibility. You know, she'll be out in the garden picking flowers, going to buy flowers. That's one of the highlights of her day because she loves flowers. She loves gardens. For me, it's making sure she assumes none of the responsibility that I have to take on. And if I can do that to make her life easier, absolutely I will. And as a man, you know, we see this idea that just because you provide, then you should, you know, you treat your woman like a slave. Absolutely not. There's kind of like this undercurrent of that. Just last week, we had a huge week, as I mentioned. I did a group session where I trained coaches in the morning. Then I went and spoke at a retreat. We had black mold in our house and part of the roof collapsed, so we had to get rid of all that out. Then we had the couches steam cleaned and we walked in and the place smelled like chemicals. There was a lot of chemically smell. It was the first day of a cycle. The bed had been sort of messed up because the guys had cleaned the linen bed head that we've got. She's lying on the bed and she was just overwhelmed. It's just been a long day and she would just been like tailing me for the day. And I had my hand on her leg. I said, what do you need from me right now? She's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed. The house is messy. It smells like chemicals and all that. And I said, okay. And I just rubbed her leg and I said, I'm going to run you a bath and you're going to go relax in the bath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to vacuum the place. I'll get rid of the rugs. I'll do whatever it needs to do. Then I'm going to go get you some dinner. You're going to relax. And this is what we're supposed to do as men. We pick up on these things and we tend to her. And we were sitting there and I was giving her a hug and she goes, I'm so sorry because I feel like you really need the support right now because I was getting a flood of messages related to your clip because I had hundreds of people send that to me and I was getting attacked and all this other stuff and doing retreats and group coaching and my men's group and, you know, trying to sort the place out for moving out because we've got black mold and, you know, getting the structural issues sorted. Like I've got so much going on. And she hugged me and she goes, I feel like you need my support right now. I said, I'm solid. In this moment, you need mine. And I just gave her a hug, kissed her on the head. I said, now go and have a bath and relax. That was it. And that's what we're supposed to do as men for our women. That's what I will always do for her. And I'll pick up the slack when she feels down or where she can't do it. And that's how you get the best out of your woman, where they send you messages like that just because I'm coming up here to do a podcast.
Mm. Do you think you're proud of yourself?
100%.
Why?
Because I've dug myself out of an immensely bad hole where I was pretty much written off. You know, I was wild at school. You know, I was wild outside of school. No one thought I was going to make something of myself, but I turned all of my pain into my power. And now that I get to sit here, I've had, you know, older mentors that are a guy in Sydney. He's in his almost 70s now. He's one of the top body workers. His nickname is the Wizard, Michael Neal. bit of a shout out to him. He won't hear this because he's not on social media. He looked at me and he goes, how long has he been doing it? 38, 40 years. He goes, I've never seen someone come across me that is doing what you're doing after what you've been through. He goes, mate, it's phenomenal. And I don't do it for the praise, but I do it because I have faced myself. And the time that we're in now, why initiations for men don't really work that much is because we're in a different time and we need different weapons to fight a different war. The war for men is internal. And I've gone into the underworld. I've faced the dragon, slayed the dragon and come out of it. And I'm very proud of who I am. If I had a daughter and she brought someone home like me, I'd say, good choice. If my son turns into someone like me, hopefully better than me, I'll be happy with that because I know who I am. I've achieved a lot and I've overcome a lot to get there. And I haven't always been great. I've, hurt people in the past. We all have, but I have, and I regret that. But that's part of the human condition. And I accept that and I've learned to forgive myself for it in spite of all odds of becoming the very opposite to what I've become now. I can sit here, hand on my heart and go, I even say with my partner, I'm like we've got our little family, like I said, we're in preconception care. And I'm like, how did this happen? Because it's just the opposite to how I grew up. And so I had everything work against me. So I made it work for me by transcending that into who I've become. And I'm proud of that. I'm not always proud of everything I've done, but I'm proud of who I've become as a result of those mistakes.
You mentioned that you've done things that you're not proud of and you regret them.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you regret?
Because I've hurt people. I was a womanizer for a while. I did drugs. I've hurt people. I've been in street fights. There's a bit of regret because I don't like to hurt people. And I think when you get a little bit older, you make decisions in a highly emotional state, you'll usually regret them. And I wish on some level I'd had someone like me to guide me at the time. That's essentially who I became. I've become who I needed when I was younger. And the regret is that I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone. And I've hurt people before and I don't want to do it again. And I wish I could go back and change it. I know that I can't, but it's just the burden of responsibility. I feel as a human being, not even as a man, but the burden of a human being is to try to not hurt anyone else. The burden of responsibility is to make sure if you do that, you change. That was my burden of responsibility. So when you can look back, while it doesn't keep me up at night, but when I think about it, if it comes into my view, all I can say is to the people I've hurt, I'm sorry, but I've become the person that will make sure other people won't do that because I'll never do that again too. So it's kind of like a bittersweet symphony in the way you look at it, in the way life has presented it to me, because all of those things I had to realize to become a better person. So they were a necessary catalyst, just an unfortunate event.
I don't believe you have regrets. Because I think if you're proud of yourself, you're truly proud of yourself, everything that you've done, good or bad, has made you who you are today.
Yeah.
So if you look in the mirror and you're proud of who looks back, how can there be regrets? Because all the things that you did that you're not proud of, if you were to take back that time and do it again, of course we would do it differently.
Yeah.
That's why we're showing up in a different way today than we were before.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't really be regret, in my opinion, because that very thing that you may regret has made you who you are today. I feel like the only way you can have regrets in your life is if you're not truly proud of who you are today, because all those things made you.
Yep.
And I think it can be a freeing thought because regret has a negative connotation and a negative feeling and energy towards it. And if we regret things, then there's a negative emotion that's tied to whatever that regret is tied to.
Yeah.
And I feel like potentially that could even be a limiting thing in itself because you're proud of who you are today.
True. Yeah, it is. I think it's a great point that you made. And I never looked at regret from that perspective because I look at regret as when you go back in your history, look at everything you regret, you will have done it in an overwhelming emotional state. Generally, when you're cool, calm, logical, I guess what I regret is not necessarily a place where I beat myself up, but I look at it and I go, yes, I am that person now, but this was always within me. I just had to excavate going through it. So I think what would be better for me to explain it as is I empathize with the people that I've hurt. That's more it. And that would be a better answer, I think.
Yeah. And then the awesome part about that is that they have probably, if they chose to not be a victim and take ownership on their position as well, you hurting them has hopefully created a low for them, which has made them who they are today. And hopefully they're proud of who they are. It's like the challenge that unfortunately you presented on them, and whoever has done something where they're potentially not proud of, that challenge has the opportunity for them to grow into a person that they're proud of, because it's forced them to look within as well. It's kind of this it's like this cycle of everything bad has the opportunity to turn into a good if you let it. The only person that gets in the way is you. Yeah. So your ability to be able to be presented with a challenge, whether someone did it with malicious intent, whether they accidentally did it, whether you tried to do it, or whether it was just a complete fluke. It's like there's an opportunity here to grow or to regress, depending on how you're wanting to use that. But I think it's a pretty powerful fuel to use to slingshot you forward into this person that you're going to be extremely proud of. And I think you've done that exceptionally. And I just want to commend you for everything that you've done. I think it's so inspiring. It's so awesome. I love when people have comparison points where you can say, I was here and I've come here. I think this is what people love a lot, being able to see that you were once them and you've transformed. Yeah. And that's the coolest thing. And I think the wisdom that you share and the depth of knowledge that you have and the calmness nature that you have is something I think everyone can take a piece out of. So I really appreciate you sharing today.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been an honor to be on here with you. And I want to reflect back also my deep respect for you and the way that you've handled yourself in the last week or so. And I know we didn't really get into that, but I really feel that you are the next generation of exemplary men. You know, you're going somewhere, you're driven, you're on point, you're on purpose, you're strong, you look after yourself. I wish I'd had 10% of your mindset at 23, 24. I don't want to say
23.
23, yeah. Cool. Man, you'll look back in 10, 20 years when you're at my age and you will see how phenomenal you are at your age. Truly, you are. I wouldn't say that unless I meant it. But I've got a deep respect for you, and I really hope that a lot of men in your age bracket see you as the quintessential next leader to look up to. Like we were talking about mentors and how they've got the life. What you've done is phenomenal for your age, man. I've spoken to multiple people about you, and I think that you are just such an exceptional, healthy version of a 23-year-old male. Yes, we all make mistakes, and that's fine. I've made plenty of mistakes. But I would implore men to see you, younger men to see you as a role model for what's possible with the right mindset and the right people around you. So I want to extend my gratitude and thanks and respect to you as well. I think what you've achieved at your age is fucking phenomenal, man. It's phenomenal. And enjoy the ride, fella.
I will. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, thanks, Jaguar. I really appreciate it. And is there anything you want to share before we wrap up?
I think I've shared enough.
Yeah.
I think that's
I'll
good.
leave all of Jag's details in the show notes in the description below so you guys can go check it out. If you've made it to the end and you got some value from the show and you enjoyed it, screenshot this and tag Jag and I in your social stories so we can personally thank you and appreciate you as well. And leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple if you enjoyed the show, because it really helps the show grow and it helps us keep getting awesome people just like Jag back on the show. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of trolls in my reviews on Spotify over the last week, and we've gone from a 4.9 star down to a 4.1 star from all of these really poor reviews, quite frankly. And to get awesome guests and building the biggest podcast in the world and to get the biggest A-list celebrities on the show, having a review that's quite a high regarded review goes a long way. So if you guys can leave a 5-star review, that'd be greatly appreciated. But Jag, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you too.
Thank you. We're signing out. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.